for all of you. And he still has a lot of hope because guys like you, women like me, are coming out here and doing what we do. So keep doing it, stay strong, and thank you for just being my. Thank you.
Address some procedural things out here. First, in the lanes, if you're doing a service in the lanes and you have bikes, you don't want anybody parking past that white line. Like the other day, we had a service and it was all bikes. They were carrying the loved one in a bike. It was one of the riders. Everybody was above the line, and the rep has to get a little back. So if you're back out on the street or get back in line somewhere else. I understand the formation, and also if you're bringing in a processional, I understand the formation. Maybe break the formation before you enter the lanes and let them come in the lanes, and then pick up the formation again when you leave the lanes, just to kind of keep it clear. That's one thing. The other thing is large services like we had the other day. When you lead them up there, immediately pull off. Don't park in the, like when they do the amphitheater, don't park in the horseshoe. You need to get out of there because that's where we had 150 cars, 200 cars the other day, and we had to pack them up around the corner, and all the bikes were still parked up front. So we're literally there just to escort them in, and then to make room for the family and stuff like that. So
in that particular instance, the bikes were sent over early to the upper end.
Yeah.
And it said, you guys park here.
Yeah, don't.
No, your guy said to park here.
Don't now. If somebody tells you that, say we've been directed by admin not to park here. Okay. That's all you tell them.
All right.
Because the rep came out and they're like, well, we didn't have anywhere. We were trying to work around bikes. Yeah,
it wasn't one of the reps that told us. It was.
No, it was one of the grounds, and they don't.
It was one of the crowd control guys.
They're just trying to figure out where it's supposed to. This whole law services is not ramp. We never had to do it before. I don't know if we have to do it now. But learning process. All about the flexible. Yeah. So just in that aspect, just make sure if they, because if you're going over there, you should be going over there with the processional, I think. But it is what it is. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you. And the new.
And make sure that he has any other new business? Choo Choo just showed up. Yay! Better late than never.
Yeah, we got to start all over again.
If nobody else has anything, let's go ahead and form the flag line.
Once in a while, people make liquid, really.
Whatever.
You all right? Just hold it.
Escort?
Whatever.
Stand by! Take guard, take reset arms! Order! Arms! Fall in front.
Mike?
want something nice and short to be followed by a rather long list. Titled Bravery and Heroism. And it was a quotation from Alexander Hamilton in 1775. 3 short lines. And I think it certainly applies when you look out on the green. There is a certain enthusiasm in liberty that makes human nature rise above itself in acts of bravery and heroism. And here we are surrounded by it. We're almost 250,000. Incredible. Today I present to you another 74. California's combat from the Korean War. When they are 3 U.S. Air Force, 38 U.S. Army, 5 U.S. Marine Corps, and 8 U.S. Navy. Harley Stafford Harris Jr., U.S. Navy, Lieutenant J.G., Los Angeles. Richard Lewis Hart, U.S. Army, Sergeant, Alameda. Robert Gordon Harvey, U.S. Air Force, Captain, San Diego. Otis Merle Harwell, U.S. Marine Corps, BFC, Kern. Kermit Keith Hawthorne, U.S. Navy, Chief Petty Officer, Sonoma. Ortho Lee Hahn, U.S. Army, Private, Humboldt. Robert Gene Hauser, U.S. Army, BFC, San Francisco. Richard Elliott Hawes, U.S. Air Force, First Lieutenant, San Francisco. Carlos Darrell Hawkins, U.S. Marine Corps, Corporal, San Mateo. Robert Eugene Haney, U.S. Army, Private, Los Angeles. Robert Richard Hebert, U.S. Air Force, Captain, San Bernardino. Joseph L. Heflin, U.S. Army, Sergeant, Merced. Eugene L. Hines, U.S. Army, Corporal. Stuart Gordon Held, U.S. Air Force, First Lieutenant, Los Angeles. Clifford D. Henkel, U.S. Army, Corporal, Los Angeles. Joseph Roller Hewitt, U.S. Air Force, Captain, San Francisco. Howard Francis Helliger, U.S. Marine Corps, Master Sergeant, San Diego. William Holmes Hyatt, U.S. Air Force, Major, Los Angeles. Private, Contra Costa. Thomas Hill, U.S. Army, PFC, Los Angeles. Harold Edward Hill, U.S. Army, PFC, Contra Costa. Leroy Albert Hill, U.S. Army, Private, San Diego. Melvin Randall Hill, U.S. Army, PFC, Los Angeles. Homer Claire Hinckley, U.S. Army, Lieutenant Colonel, San Francisco. Captain, Los Angeles. Jack Kenneth Sherrill, Major, Alameda. Alan Hopp, U.S. Navy, Lieutenant J.G., Los Angeles. Ernest Hoffman, U.S. Army, Corporal, Los Angeles. Max S. Holt, U.S. Army, Private, Los Angeles. John G. Hope, Jr., U.S. Army, Sergeant, Los Angeles. Herman Leon Horton, U.S. Marine Corps, TFC, Los Angeles. George R. Housekeeper, U.S. Army, Master Sergeant, Riverside. Melvin John Howard, U.S. Air Force, Captain, Los Angeles. Billy R. Hudson, U.S. Army, BFC, Merced. James Alexander Hudson, U.S. William Ralph Hunter, U.S. Air Force, Captain, Los Angeles. Hidemiro Saito Shida, U.S. Air Force, Airman First Class, San Francisco. Leo J. James, U.S. Army, Sergeant First Class, Marin. Paul Anthony Jean-Claude, U.S. Army, PFC, Los Angeles. Donald Russell Jenkins, U.S. Air Force, First Lieutenant, Alameda. Payne Jennings Jr., U.S. Air Force, Colonel, San Diego. Richard Delbert Jensen, U.S. Navy, Ensign, Butte. Wilbur Dean Jensen, U.S. Air Force, Captain, Humboldt. Arthur Jack Johnson, Air Force, Captain, Los Angeles. Jefferson Johnson, U.S. Army, Corporal, San Francisco. William E. Johnson, U.S. Army, PFC, Los Angeles. George Madison Jones, U.S. Air Force, Captain, Los Angeles. Robert Neal Jones, U.S. Army, PFC, Los Angeles. Wilbert G. Jones, Jr., U.S. Army, First Lieutenant, Los Angeles. George A. Jordan, Jr., U.S. Army, Private, Santa Clara. Robert Alfred Jersch, U.S. Army, Corporal, Napa. Brett W. Justice, Jr., U.S. Army, First Lieutenant, Los Angeles. Eldon Charles Justice, U.S. Army, Sergeant, Humboldt. Cassell Monford Keene, U.S. Air Force, Major, Orange. Raymond Gene Kelly, U.S. Navy, Ensign, Los Angeles. Gilbert Clyde Kennedy, U.S. Army, Corporal, San Francisco. Jack Spencer Kennedy, U.S. Navy, Petty Officer 3rd, Kern. Wayne Kenton, U.S. Army, Private, San Diego. Walter Maurice Kelpley, U.S. Air Force, Captain, Los Angeles. Jacob Meek Kaiser, U.S. Army, Sergeant First Class, San Joaquin. Herbert Marvin Kiek, U.S. Army, Corporal, Los Angeles. Joseph Harrison Keinholz, U.S. Air Force, Captain, Los Angeles. Charles Kirk, U.S. Air Force, First Lieutenant, Los Angeles. Clarence E. Master Sergeant, San Francisco. Raymond John Newpel, U.S. Air Force, Captain, Los Angeles. Fred Leslie Koch, U.S. Navy, Lieutenant J.G., Alameda. Ivan Marcian Lacknick, U.S. Air Force, Captain, Los Angeles. You die twice. You die when you take your last breath. And you die when your name is spoken aloud for the very last time. Let these names be heard. This is us. This is California. The list this morning brings us to a total of 3,590 MIAs recognized by Veterans Without Boundaries since we started. And I thank you for your contribution. My list this morning from LA is a little second class U.S. Army, Korea. Bryan R. Cornsweet, age 77, spec 4, U.S. Army, Vietnam. And Peter Joseph Sandoval, age 54, PFC, U.S. Army, Persian Gulf. And I don't know why the list is incomplete on SoCal Patriot Guard. Yesterday, our brothers and sisters of Veterans Without Family Miramar received and honored Thomas Mark Eskew. I have no rank or branch. All honorably served.
Once again, good morning to you all. Thank you for being here on this actually beautiful morning. Better than 90.
Amen to that.
You know, hard to get up to be here in the morning, but it's well worth it. This Garden of Heroes. What an amazing place. A brief reading from the Bible. This is from John, 1 John. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust for flesh, the lust for the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. These folks here, buried here, will live forever, in our hearts and in our minds. Our nation owes each and every one of these men and women a debt of gratitude, a debt we can never pay. I ask that all you think of our country and pray to the Lord for the health and well-being of our country and our leaders. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Amen.
Amen.
Make sure you bring your flags to burial if you're staying. If not, please remember that your mission is not complete today until you are home safe. In closing, again we salute A. Lawrence Vancourt. He was just a common soldier. But as President, we may need his likes again. For when countries are in conflict, then we find the soldier's part is to clean up all the trouble that the politicians start. If we cannot do him honor while he's here to hear the praise, then at least perhaps just a simple headline in a paper that would say, our country is in mourning for a soldier died today.
Amen.
Before we go, last week when we came in here, we saw one huge presence of honor teams down at golf. I don't know if you guys all saw it, but there was one day we just saw like